You are laying there in the hospital bed, about to take your final breath. You can hear the beeping of the machines in the distance. You're breathing very slowly, and with each inhale, the pause for another breath becomes longer and longer. You can hear your family crying. You then hold on to that extra breath because you want to tell your mom how much you appreciated her. You start thinking about the things you wish you have done. You then take that final breath. Suddenly, everything as you know it disappears. You are now dead. What now? What is death? You're going to die. So am I. Every living thing on this planet has an expiration date, and we're going to die. But what is death? And what actually happens when we die? Many of us have different ideas on what death is, and in some cultures, it's taboo to even speak about death or even try to explain what it is. Why is this? We celebrate birth and we celebrate life, but when it comes to death, many of us have a negative feeling about it, which is understandable. You may have experienced death with a loved one, someone that you're close with, someone that made you stray so far away from even thinking about the idea of death. But why is that? Some people even claim to have near-death experiences, and in those experiences, they claim to have even met God. Is this true? We'll never actually know, and we simply do not know. One thing I have noticed is that every story I've read with people with near-death experiences, they all seem to have something in common. They all seem to have the feeling of oneness and being complete, or just a feeling of readiness. Maybe that's why some people even hold on to life, just to see that loved one for the last time. Maybe they know that their time is done here on Earth. I remember growing up, always wondering, why are we here? Why is it that we come to this planet? We develop great relationships with people. We accomplish so many goals, and then we die. I've always wondered, what was the point? There has to be something more, right? Ever since we existed, there's always been scientists trying to figure out what death is and what happens after we die, and yet they still haven't seemed to find an answer. But one thing for certain is that they have concluded the consciousness is part of the body, but they simply don't know what happens to it after we die. There was a scientist I recently read about. She came up with a conclusion that the soul and the consciousness are made up of stored information. Think of the conscious mind as a program on a computer. If the computer dies, the program can still be transferred and continue to exist. So in theory, the soul does not actually die, but it moves on. Could this be true? Could how we live here on Earth also affect what happens after we die? Maybe death is important, right? Maybe we need death to be there, to live this life a certain way. Imagine you had the opportunity to live forever. Would you? Would you have the same feelings toward loved ones if you knew that they would live forever? Would you appreciate them the same? Maybe death is needed for appreciation of human life and existence. How would you treat life knowing that you will live forever? In all actuality, tomorrow really isn't promised. We live a lot for tomorrow and the future, and we don't live for the now. We don't know what can happen tomorrow, and maybe that's the beauty of life and death, just simply not knowing and the mystery. What will it be like if you knew exactly when you would die? How much would you try to accomplish? Would you continue to put off that dream that you have? Would you stay in that situation that you're hoping tomorrow gets better? Or would you live as much as you can? Why is it that we view death as bad and life as good? Maybe death is needed for life. Maybe when you die, that's when you actually begin to live. So maybe there is beauty in death. Maybe the beauty is the great appreciation you have for it. You are humbled because you know one day you're going to die, but at the same time, you're grateful for this life and its beauty. The thought of us dying tomorrow should make us realize that this life is so short and it isn't promised. We don't know what can happen tomorrow, next week, or next year. But one thing again we are promised is death. So why not live as if tomorrow is your last? I'm not saying go crazy, but I mean, why not put in that extra effort to live the life that you know you deserve? A lot of times we know exactly what the problem is in our life, but yet we still stay in that situation and hope tomorrow gets better, and tomorrow isn't even promised. Why not be the bigger person and say sorry to that friend that you haven't spoken to? Why not break that cycle of pride and love those who don't know how to love? People's biggest regrets are on their deathbed, so strive for all you want now, here as you exist, not hoping for tomorrow, but living for the now. So whatsoever happens after we leave this beautiful planet, we may never know until we experience it. And again, we simply do not know. So why not live your life as if tomorrow is your last day? Appreciate the people around you and always be grateful for every situation. I want to leave you with this. I believe that this life that we live here determines what happens after we leave. So strive to be the best version of yourself and live that life that you deserve.